together. Thank you to LaunchPad for putting this together. I'm not going to really use this so much because I kind of enjoy dialogue rather than reading, and everything that you need to know is in those brochures. So I may kind of jump around, but I'm more a conversationalist. So I'm with Prestige Capital. We're a 32-year-old company that provides liquidity against companies' invoices. We are a form of financing which works for companies who can't get bank financing or who can't get it fast enough. So companies come to us when they have orders, like this young lady here who's launching a business. And if you don't mind my using sort of this as an example, what is your name again?
I'm Lori Russo.
Lori, okay. So let's use Lori as an example. She's launching a new product, and she will likely get orders from retailers. She is a new business, so she cannot go to a bank and get money. So she will get introduced to me, either through a banker, an accountant, an attorney, a private equity firm, an investment banker who says, I have a client who's got a great product. They will not be able to produce it for this retailer because they have to pay their factory. How are they going to pay their factory if they don't have money? That's where we come. So we will work in conjunction with a company who will literally pay her factory for her product. Can I say what it is? Oh, so it's this very cool little towel, like that you use after the gym.
It's a hooded towel. It's a wearable sport towel.
Okay. So we will vet the deal. Somebody will introduce me to her. I will say, who is the order from? She'll say, HSN or QVC or Target or whatever, and we will put her in touch with another company who will fund the factory, and then we will ultimately buy her invoice from Target, pay back the guy who laid out the money for the factory, and give her the liquidity. So I will walk you through an example of what we do. Let's just say she has an order for $100,000. And it will cost her $50,000 to make it. The purchase order guy will pay the factory $50,000. We come in and we buy that invoice for $100,000, pay off that guy, and then give her the difference minus our fee, okay? It is a great way to grow businesses. We have grown businesses across a humongous range of industries, from food, beverage, liquor, consumer products, products in your space. Has anybody, by a show of hands, how many people watch Shark Tank? Okay. I work with Damon John. I've spoken at his boot camp. I work with companies like that. So somebody who comes on the show and says, oh, I need equity. Well, you know what? You don't always need equity. You need somebody to give you liquidity to fill your order. You may want to work with one of the sharks because they'll make great introductions to you, and that's terrific. But sometimes you just need that money to pay your supplier. That's something that we could talk about. So let's talk a little bit about, where we fit in. At Prestige Capital, we will work with companies that are on target to do $1 million in sales, up to companies that do $100 million in sales. The industry, we're pretty much industry agnostic. So if you're anything other than medical, insurance receivables, we will look at it. And at the end of the day, show me a good receivable, I'll show you the money. Right? We fund deals in 5 to 7 business days. Our criteria for financing is that we have a first lien on the assets of the company, primarily the accounts receivables, and the company is selling obviously to a credit-worthy company, and the owners of the company have a clean personal background. So we're going to look at your credit report, not so much to see what your score is, but more to see, are you an upstanding person, right? So with those 3 criteria, if I speak to you today and you actually had an invoice today, you'd give me an application tomorrow. Within 24 hours, you would have a proposal. You would sign the proposal, give me a due diligence fee to close the deal. 2 days later, you'd have a contract, and a few days later, you'd have your money. Very quick financing. And oftentimes, we talk about the fact that people think that equity is always the way to go. And sometimes it is, but it's not only the way to go. And we can also function in conjunction with equity firms. So very often we'll get an application, and who is the stockholders of the company? One of them is the guy who created the thing, but the other stockholders are the equity partners. And they like having us in there because we're providing day-to-day liquidity. We often say that we are providing the money to keep the lights on, pay the rent, pay the employees, while they are doing more of like the R&D, research and development money. We are just giving working capital to a company, so they enjoy having us in there. There are brochures over there which have a lot of tombstones and talk about the kinds of companies we've financed. If you go to our new website, you'll see that by industry, we have pretty much every industry under the sun, from service businesses, consumer products, which include food and beverage, technology companies, which include literally companies' websites where they have ad revenue, and we finance that, all kinds of technology companies, and manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers. And as far as the industry type, it can be early stage capital, it can be growth capital, it can be companies that are distressed and are being asked to leave by their banker. It can be debtor in possession financing, which means you're in bankruptcy and you need to get new financing because the existing financing no longer exists for you. So at the end of the day, the kinds of deals we do are very diverse as far as industry and as far as size, but the bottom line is it has to be a company that has invoices to another company or that has orders that will turn into invoices. So that's kind of where we sit in the game. We are, as I mentioned, 32 years in business and close deals quickly. So that's kind of our claim to fame, is that, you know, it's a very quick analysis of whether either your company qualifies, and you qualify if you can sell me roughly $100,000, your credit is clean, I can have the first lien on the assets, and you're selling to a creditworthy company. Any questions? Yeah.
What are the fees and what is the length of time to repay to release the lien on the assets?
Okay, so the way it works is we have a lien on the asset for the period of the term of the contract of us doing business together. Our typical term is a 1-year contract, and in that term there is no minimum and no obligation to sell anything at any time. Okay, our fees are charged when you sell me an invoice and you ask me for money on that invoice. So for example, she has an invoice, let's say, so I'm gonna go through an example. So let's say she has an invoice for Target. She sells it to me today. The fee clock begins today. When she gets paid, the fee stops. So we charge on a 30-day initial fee, which depending on the size of the deal could be 2 to 2.5% typically. The discount fee includes the money. It includes insurance against bankruptcy of the receivable, and it includes all the back office work that we do, which includes credit information on the customers you might want to sell to, which may not be a big store that I know is creditworthy, it may be a smaller store. It includes verification of the receivable, collection of that receivable, ledgering everything, and having it available to the client online in real time. And so that 2 or 2.5% is for the first 30 days that our funds are in use, and then each 10-day increment it goes up by 1/3 of whatever that was. So I say it's kind of like a taxi. When you get in, the first mile, and then each quarter of a mile ratchets up by a fraction of that. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Yeah.
Typically, how much do you advance?
So our typical advance rate is 75 to 80%. Usually a service business is 80% because there's not dilution usually, and a product business is typically 75. So what it means is that, you know, if I buy out an invoice for $100,000, if it's a service business, within 24 hours later, you have $80,000 of cash in your hand, and after your invoice pays to our lockbox, you get back that 20% reserve, minus any deductions your client may have taken, minus our fee, and you get the difference. So if no deductions were taken, then you have a 20% reserve minus my fee, and you take my fee out of the back, and then you subtract it out, and then get the difference back. So really, it's using other people's money to grow your business. You don't have to be in business a certain amount of time. You can be somebody who has a great idea, and somebody loves that idea and wants to buy your product. We financed a very high-profile liquor company owned by a celebrity. They were new out of the gate. One of the bankers here on Long Island introduced me, and he says, I love them, but they're not in business for 2 years. Can't do anything. You're only in business for a year. They sold to one customer, so their concentration was in one debtor, $1 million a month. We grew them to $4 million a month within a year, and then she sold the company for a lot of money. So that's what we do. We grow companies. And we don't expect to be their financing partner for a long period of time. We know that we're there to get them from here to there. And once they're there, they may get, a loan from you, or they may have a private equity firm that just really, gives them everything they need and they don't need us anymore. So we're kind of that stepping stone. We know that, we expect that. We actually had a great testimonial, which is on our website, from a client of ours who's a 30-year-old magazine. They were going through some changes and needed money, and we said, you can use us, for about a year to clean things up, and they just said, true to your word. We got where we needed to be, and now we're fine, and, we're leaving you, with good thoughts, and that's what we expect. So, again, we redid our website, got a lot of good information on there. I also have a blog on the website, and I tell stories about clients or events I go to and the kind of people I meet and what's going on in the industry. So, check that out and subscribe. Any other questions? Yeah.
Could having a patent increase my chances of getting financing?
You have to have a sale of your product, whatever the product is. So having a patent hopefully enables you to show your product and then get an order.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you have the order, that's when we would talk. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, one more.